everyone. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about bridging generations in funeral service, what we've learned in funeral service as funeral directors, and how to pass that information on to the newer, younger generation. A little bit about me. My name is Rose. I own Han Funeral Home and Rose Cremation Service. I've been in the industry for about 10 years. I have to look at this because I don't even know anything about me. I'm licensed in both Illinois and Indiana. I do pre-needs, certified crematory operator, and I do have 2 dogs that come with me to work every day, so it's pretty cool. Okay, so funeral directing. This is not just a job, this is a calling. Families come to us on the worst day of their lives. How you show up, how you speak, and how you carry yourself, it really matters. If we went around the room, which we're not going to, but if we did and we asked each other, why are we funeral directors? Most of us have a pretty meaningful story as to why we're, in this profession. We're not just here to, make money or because we think it's a cool job. This profession has been highly regarded for generations due to the high standards that funeral directors have placed on themselves, and we've maintained those high standards for ourselves. Being a funeral director is a very special person to be. When someone ever asks me what I do for a living and I say I'm a funeral director, I'm extremely proud of that. And I'm extremely proud of how highly regarded this profession is, and we need to maintain that. So there is a generational gap, right? Maybe we could do show of hands. How many here people have been licensed for less than 5 years? You want to raise your hand? Hey, that's a good amount. How many people over 10 years? How about 15? 20? Okay, so there's quite a bit of a range over here of people. I have found that most issues when it comes to the younger or newer crowd versus the older or experienced crowd is not always from disrespect, but it's usually from misunderstanding of expectations. Experienced directors often assume that certain things are obvious because they are to them. And while some things might deserve to be obvious, they aren't always obvious. Common sense is not always common, and we cannot expect people to read our minds. For example, story time. I went to Starbucks the other day. I paid in cash. My total was $4.99. I handed the person $10 and a 1 penny, and she looked at me like I had 3 eyes on my head. Like, I don't know. It was like over her head what I was trying to do. I just wanted a 5 back. To me, that's common sense, but it's not. And we can't, even in funeral industry, or anything, we can't assume that things that are very obvious to us are obvious to the next person that we're talking to. I think that's where a lot of the frustration starts on both sides. Okay, so professionalism. Professionalism means showing respect, responsibility, and integrity in your work and interactions. It means doing your job competently and ethically, treating others with dignity, being accountable, and managing emotions appropriately under stress. A lot of times, the older generation or more experienced generations, we think that the younger or newer people are not professional. Maybe they speak a little bit too casually or confidently. They come out of mortuary school and they think they know everything. And we're like, you guys don't even know the Our Father prayer or something. Or they use slang during arrangements without realizing how it comes across to grieving families. To younger generations, maybe don't use words like cap or bet when you're making, arrangements with families. For those of us that are teaching, we have to be tactful when offering advice and guidance. Instead of saying things like, that's unprofessional, we have to lead the way by showing them what we expect and offer a really good foundation for them. Okay, I'm going to go over some issues that we sometimes encounter. Does anyone want to tell me what's wrong with this picture? You can just shout it out. Okay, I'll just list the numerous things. First of all, that person rudely has wild hair. Tattoos are showing. She's very, cavalier with her drink, and she just looks like she doesn't really care, right? That's the first things that we're noticing here in this arrangement office. But you guys didn't notice that she's actually a really good funeral director. All of these things were just in the past couple of months directed towards her, and that was a wig. That was me, in case you guys couldn't tell. But my point is appearance and presence. Families notice everything, even on their worst days. And sometimes the younger generation has a hard time understanding that grooming and appearance, we have standards for that. And it's not about control, but also the funeral home is not a fashion runway or whatever. We have to help our families feel comfortable and confident in us. Being clean, neat, and prepared, it matters. Little details can make or break how families perceive us. Appearance doesn't only refer to how we're dressing, it also refers to our energy and our professional presence. When we exude confidence, then our families are easier to have trust in us, knowing that we will take care of them on the worst day of their life. We have to remember that this is not about us, that this is about the families that we are serving. I was going to tell you a quick story about, I was doing a speech thing, and it was not about this. It was about Islamic funerals. And it was in a totally different setting, and I had two students, and they asked me a question. So one was a young female student. She asked me a question. She said, if I am not Islamic and I get invited to an Islamic funeral, what do I wear? I said, great question. You wear what's appropriate. We went over that. And a young man answered or raised his hand, and he was like, well, I have this tattoo. And if you're asking me to cover it up on a funeral, you're, stifling my creative, blah, 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 whatever. I don't even remember what he said, freedom of expression or something along those lines. And I told him, I'm like, it's not a matter of stifling your individuality, but we have to make sure that we are presenting ourselves in a way that exudes confidence, so that our families feel like we're going to be there for them. For our senior staff or older staff or more experienced, however we want to explain to them, we don't want to just be rude about it and just bully them. Some things are not removable, like tattoos. You can't just, be mean about it. We have to be tactful when we're explaining to new people in the industry. Whenever I go out, if I have my tattoo showing, whatever, I always get a comment about it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it just proves that they are a distraction. And the last thing we want to do as funeral directors is we want to be a distraction. We want, when they come to us on the worst day of their lives, they are the center focus. And we don't want them to be distracted by what's going on with my hair or my tattoos or my weird outfit. We want them to feel all the focus is 100% on them, and our attention is also on them. So as younger generation, we have to understand it's not about you. No one's bullying you. And for the older generation, we have to just be tactful and explain, not trying to stifle your creative whatever, but it's not about how you feel. It's about how the families feel. Okay. Another issue that we come into sometimes is timeliness. So in this picture these are the two girls who work for me, by the way. Michelle is the lady who is very, very late, and Savannah is my new funeral director. She's coming in late. Savannah's waiting for her. She's got 3 drinks and a bag, and she's just, I don't know what's going on over there. You can't show up to the day of work, of the funeral. The service starts at 9. You can't show up at 9 o'clock, right? What's our motto with funeral directors that we all know? Hurry up and wait. We're always on time, but if you're on time, you're actually late. You have to be early. Preparation shows that it shows that your families, and it shows your coworkers that you care. Showing up exactly service time creates stress for everyone involved. I had a girl who used to work for me. She was just, she just did wakes, as a student, just for a short time. I'm telling you, every Saturday, this girl worked. She was always late, and then she'd send a text with, I'm going to Starbucks. Do you want anything? No, I don't want anything. I want you to get to work on time because we have stuff to do. For the younger generation, you have to treat being early as part of the job. You have to arrive prepared. This shows respect for your families, shows respect for your coworkers, and what we're doing is our job itself. For senior staff, instead of just demanding that they come in early and rolling our eyes when they are not on time or not early, We have to explain to them and show them our daily procedures in the morning, what's going on. Maybe they don't understand that it takes a half hour to open up the funeral home before families come in. Maybe they don't understand you have to run around, turn on the lights, light the candles, make coffee, make sure there's toilet paper in the restrooms, little things like that. Maybe they have no idea. So it's our job to make sure as older people, or not older people, but as more experienced, that we teach them. And we also want to show them that, the ripple effect, it really does translate into the quality of service that we provide as well. So if you are a little bit late and now you're rushing, now everyone feels a little bit off, and things are not as good or as well prepared or as smooth as they could be. Okay. Okay, courtesy and teamwork. I am, this one is, we don't do this job alone. I've noticed that a lot of times in the younger generation, when they come out of mortuary school, they have this sometimes, I'm not saying everybody, I'm a mortician, I'm a funeral director, I'm dang proud of it, and I'm better than everybody else. Well, no, we don't do this job alone. Everybody that we deal with, the cemetery, the clergy, staff, hospice workers, crematory, florist, everyone is part of a bigger picture here. And we need to make sure that we treat everybody with kindness, and we need to understand that we are all working together as a big, as a big team. When you have kindness, when you work with people, you're creating these strong relationships. And sometimes those strong relationships are what is going to save you when you get your butt in trouble. A couple months ago, I was making arrangements with a family, and they spoke Spanish, and I don't speak Spanish, and they gave me how they wanted the writing on the ribbons. I speak a tiny bit of Spanish, but I did not catch that there was a mistake. The mistake was not mine, it was the family's. I even had them handwrite it and text it to me so that I made sure I had everything perfect, but they had made a mistake and I did not catch it, which is fine. The day of the service, they noticed the mistake, and it was the absolute end of the world to them. Now, if I did not have a very strong relationship with my florist, I would not have been able to call them and say, hey, I'm so sorry. Is there any way you can fix these ribbons for me? And they did. They had them fixed and replaced within the hour. Now, if we don't have kindness, like I said, towards people like, our florist or a crematory, you need to rush cremation. Oh my gosh, I have a service tonight and family wants to bury the ashes in 2 days and you want to rush crematory, but you're rude to your crematory. They might tell you, sorry, can't help you. So that's something that we have to learn, as a younger generation. When you get out of mortuary school, everybody is working together. No one is better than anybody else. We are all together. For our senior staff, when approaching this with our younger or newer, people that are coming in, maybe show them real examples of how strong relationships are important. One thing that I did think about is that a lot has changed in the past 10 years, and one huge thing being COVID. So COVID has really shaped how a lot of these younger people communicate with the world and how they interact with their environment. And a lot of times interpersonal relationships are not as strong as they have been before. Like in the older generation, right? You always had a guy for everything. Like my florist has been with our funeral home for well over 20 years. Hairdresser, same thing. I mean, I can go on and on. But nowadays, in today's generation, there's no real, loyalty that way. The interpersonal communication and relationships are they're different. Everything's done digitally and people kind of move on quickly to other things. So as, people that are more experienced in this industry, when you're talking to the younger ones, show them that these relationships have been forged with time and they are important, and we want to continue to maintain that. Kindness and reputation goes a long, long way. The funeral world is very small. We probably all know a story about somebody in this room, right? People will always remember how you made them feel. I had a situation actually where there was a funeral director who did a funeral for me. She does not work for me. And I heard it from 3 different sources of rudeness. And what the situation was when they got to the cemetery, she insisted that the grave diggers or the cemetery workers carry the flowers from the hearse to the grave. And her attitude was, I don't touch flowers. I'm a funeral director. That's beneath me. I heard that from the cemetery workers. I heard that from the hearse driver. And then I heard that from the family. And that does not look good. So just because, speaking to the younger crowd here, just because you got out of mortuary school, you got really good grades or whatever, and you're a funeral director and you're really proud of that, that does not make you better or above anyone. We do all the same things and we're all working together. That's very, very important. And for the older crowd, we have to teach by example. We can't just demand what we want these people to learn. We have to teach and show how it means and what it means to be kind and to work together with everybody. Okay, here I have Michelle trying to explain something to Savannah, and Savannah just doesn't want to listen to her because she probably thinks she knows best because she just got out of mortuary school. For the younger generation, you have to remember that senior directors have seen everything. We've seen it. Maybe not we. I mean, I have about 10 years, but I mean, even people who are older and more experienced than I am, the advice that is given to you exists for a reason. Most lessons were learned the hard way. And by the hard way, I don't necessarily mean that a mistake was involved. It could be long nights, grueling hours, difficult families, difficult situations that we had to encounter. The experience that we have should be viewed as protection, not as control. So we're not trying to control or, really hound our ways into you guys. We just want you to understand that what we have to teach is very valuable and really, really, really crucial if we're taking care of our families. And as a funeral home owner, the funeral home that's my baby. That's my livelihood. I need things to go right. I don't want them to go right. I need the things to go right there. And so if I'm entrusting someone, like I have my funeral director, Savannah, if I'm entrusting my funeral home to someone like Savannah, I need to make sure that things are done, not necessarily my way, but the right way. I know a lot of times that younger or newer funeral directors may dismiss advice as old school without understanding that there's a lot of experience and a lot of heart that goes into it. You have to be willing to learn and listen from people who have handled situations that you have not handled yet. For us that have a little bit more experience, we need to present this information as protection, as mentorship, and not frame it as control or criticism, right? We want them to not make the same mistakes that we did. We don't want, so like just an example, maybe we're hounding you because we want you to put on the file 17 times. I don't know. That you want fingerprints taken for a family. The reason why is because we don't want those fingerprints to be forgotten, because we don't want you to have to tell those families, I'm sorry I didn't get your fingerprints for your loved one, I forgot. Right? So some of these things that we are teaching you, they might come as, old school or stupid or whatever, but they all come with good reason. For the younger crowd, you have to be willing to learn. Let me go back. You have to be willing to learn. A lot of mistakes I found have come from nerves, not attitudes. So like, when you take a test and then you review the test after you took it and you noticed, oh my gosh, I knew the answer to that, but I got it wrong. It's because you were like overthinking or you were nervous and you marked down the wrong answer, right? It's the same thing in real life. A lot of mistakes come from just being nervous and being too quick. But for the younger group, you have to be comfortable with asking questions, stay humble, stay curious, be open to learning just like you were in school. But for us that are older, we have to create an environment that is safe for our younger generation to ask questions. New staff may hesitate to ask questions if they are afraid that they look stupid or they are looking inexperienced. So as older, we have to make sure that we create a safe space. So if someone's asking us the same question, we're not going to roll our eyes at them and say, why are you asking me? You'd rather them ask as opposed to assume and make an incorrect mistake. In regards to leadership and training, we want to treat our younger staff or newer staff with guidance. We want to explain why do we want our standards upheld. We want to explain the why and not just the correction. Don't just say you did X, Y, Z wrong. Explain why is it wrong. I know sometimes it's, for me personally, it's easier for me to just get up and do something myself than to have to explain to do it or allow someone else to do it and then they did it wrong and then I have to go redo it, right? But if we want to have, these young people really grow into excellent funeral directors that are going to carry on what we're doing today, we have to be willing to take that time with them. If we see someone is really, really struggling, we need to maintain patience with them. Don't rush to just fire them at the first sight of, sometimes in my head, it's like incompetence. We don't want to do that, right? We want to make sure that we notice that they are trying and willing to improve. When we invest in someone, that person can grow into an incredible director. It's frustrating when we have someone who's newer and they repeat mistakes, but a lot of times that's how we learn. We don't want these mistakes to be huge grievances, obviously, right? But we need to be patient and remember that we were once new and we probably made a lot of those same mistakes as well. So as long as we are correcting them in a calm manner, in a tactful manner, and explaining the reasoning behind things as opposed to kind of bullying, and recognize the effort of when they're trying to improve, things would be good. Okay. I have 2 story times here. So I interviewed a girl recently. Is it kind of recent? Yeah, maybe recent. Maybe a year and a half ago. I don't know if that's recent, but I really liked her during the interview. She was really, really sweet. And I asked her, I was like, "Are you working right now?" And she was like, "No." And I said, "Where were you working?" She told me XYZ funeral home. And I said, "Why aren't you there anymore?" And she said, "Well, they made me go into a Catholic church and I'm not Catholic. So that's infringing on my religious rights." And I can see some of your guys' eyes are rolling. Crazy, right? I was like, am I in the Twilight Zone or something? Like, what the heck is happening? Another one is I had, back when I had social media, I don't anymore, but back when I did, I saw a posting from a funeral director who worked, and it was crazy posting. And the posting was, rant, blah, blah, blah. I had to make arrangements today. This was back when like Trump ran for president, like the first time. I had to make arrangements with the family and their Trump supporters. How disgusting. I wish that their funeral totally goes wrong. I'm going to call in sick on that day. But what's crazy is like you click on her name and then you click on her work and it shows her funeral home. Like, come on, people. We have to serve every family, all beliefs, all backgrounds. Your personal religion, beliefs, politics, whatever it stays at the door. You do not use that or allow that to interfere with how you're going to treat that family. It does not matter. Professionalism means supporting every family fully, regardless of personal views or beliefs. Every single family, even if they have beliefs that really are like antagonists to your own, they deserve dignity, compassion, and professionalism from us at all times. I know sometimes in the younger generation, especially now with social media, everyone has a pedestal to stand on, and everyone has a lot of opinions floating up. But just because you might feel internally a little bit uncomfortable in participating in a service outside of your religious belief or serving a family that does not share your beliefs, whatever it is, it does not matter. You have to serve every single family with compassion and respect. For our older crowd, we have to make sure that we set expectations early and we explain that funeral service is supporting the family's needs and we set our own preferences aside. Putting others first. So we have to be patient and calm when we're talking to our families. We have to anticipate the needs of families before they have to ask. Every little detail matters. One of the things that I've noticed in maybe the younger, newer generation is that a lot of times they have a lot of personal stress or distractions, and it causes, them to overlook small details, small things that families notice. And families notice everything. When you're upset or when I'm upset or when they're upset, everything is like, right, magnified by 10. So they notice everything. And we need to make sure that we focus on anticipating family needs and staying present during their services and not allowing ourselves to be distracted. We have to, as the older generation, teach that the smallest acts of patience and attentive lives often leave the biggest impact on grieving families, right? So grandma came in and she's talking, yapping our ear away for like 30 minutes. And we're like, oh my gosh, but we're patient with her. And what does she say when she leaves office? Thank you so much. And she's so grateful. And that she feels 10 times better because she was able to come in and talk to us and we were patient with her, even though maybe we're like, ugh, I have so much to do. Have to maintain that patience at all times. We have a very big role in healing. We are helping our families create meaningful goodbyes. Our presence can bring comfort during chaos. Families will remember kindness long after the service is over. Knowing that you help make the worst day of someone's life a little easier is what makes this work meaningful. To me personally, the best feeling, the best compliment I have is when I have a repeat family. Because I know that the first, second, or third time that I serviced them, that they appreciated our service, that they felt taken care of, and sometimes they felt loved. Yesterday, Savannah and I, we did a funeral for someone. And in 2 years, this is the 4th funeral I've done for them. So first the son died, then the daughter died, then the mom died, and now the dad died. And they keep coming back every single time. And that is our goal. Our goal is to help them and to create that very strong relationship in their mind that when something terrible happens to them in their family, they lose someone that they love, that the first person they think of is us. You don't want them to go and, to go on Google or something and have to search for another funeral home. They want you instantly to think, oh, I want to go to Han Funeral Home. They were there for mom and she really helped me. That's the whole point of this whole job, is to make sure that we're there to help people. And we can't do that, obviously, without our team, without our younger generation. We have to continue on and we have to teach them the value of that and really instill how meaningful and how good that feels. This job is hard. No one said it's not hard. Hours are long. I didn't sleep at all last night. I was out making removals and I was taking death calls and stuff like that. Still show up to work on time, setting up the chapel this morning for a funeral for today. Work is physical. We have to do removals. Sometimes they kind of suck. It is what it is. And the emotional weight is so real. Yesterday, I don't know why, but I cried at the graveside with the family. Sometimes these cases, they really hit you and they hit you right in the heart. But despite all of this, despite having all of the really bad days, this work is incredibly rewarding, especially when you really put your whole heart into it. I know that sometimes, I've rolled my eyes when I hear about, some people are like, oh, I need a mental health day, blah, blah, blah. We have to understand that this is, I'm speaking to the older, more experienced crowd. We have to understand this is a hard job and times are a little bit different now. And the people that are coming out of school, maybe they don't have the same long work mentality that we do. And we have to be conscious of that. Some of us don't know what it means to have a work-life balance, right? The ones of us that have been here for a long time. I was raised by immigrant parents. They worked a million hours a day, it felt like, you know what I mean? And we did too as kids. So the younger generation, they're, used to doing things a little bit differently than us. And we have to be mindful of that and maybe not bully them into making them feel like they're not good enough for this, right? Burnout is a real thing. Emotional exhaustion is real. Stress can affect your attitude and it can affect teamwork. I personally know a lot of students that I went to school with that are no longer in the industry because they have been burnt out. For the younger generation, there's nothing wrong in taking care of yourself. Ask for support when it's needed. And remember why you entered this profession, but don't take advantage or feel entitled to take unnecessary time off. You have to remember that even though sometimes it doesn't feel like it, You are a very necessary part of a team. For the senior staff, we have to acknowledge that there is a huge emotional and physical demands of this job. It might be second nature to us. Like for me, I go to bed every night with the phones, right? Some people don't do that. The younger generation, they're not used to being on call every night. For me, it's like if I'm not on call, I don't even know what to do with myself. I'm like, I have a night off? Like, this is crazy. What am I even going to do? But instead of dismissing their struggles, we have to acknowledge that maybe they don't have the same mentality as us and kind of nurture that it's okay, but we can still work together. The profession itself has not changed. Our standards are still the same, but how we pass it on has to change. So how we teach has to evolve, just like everything else is evolving. We have to remember that families may forget what we say, but they will never forget how we made them feel, right? So, for instance, I make arrangements with a family. I've made arrangements with them before. They don't even remember the prayer on their dad's prayer card, right? But they remember that they cried. They remember that you helped them pick it out, things like that. Not always the exact words are remembered, but always the sentiment, the feeling. We have to remember, little things like being early, respectful, kind. These things all play a little part in a very, very huge picture. This profession is a privilege. It is a privilege to be a funeral director. This is not like any other job. It really is one of the most special, in my opinion, and maybe my opinion is wrong, but being a funeral director is probably one of the most special privileges we have because we get to be there with our families when they're saying goodbye to someone. They're seeing someone for the very, very last time. So we have to remember that this is a privilege. We need people to continue doing what we're doing. We cannot continue to nurture if we're going to not collectively take care of each other, right? So when we have someone who's younger and they're willing to learn, we have to remember that maybe it's not the same way that we did it, like we don't have to haze them and things like that. I know when I was an intern at Hahn Funeral Home, I was very blessed. I had the best mentors ever, John Hahn Jr. and Sr. But I know that some funeral directors didn't have that experience, and it was a really, really tough internship for them. And maybe for the older crowd, right, we're like, well, we used to do things this way. It doesn't always have to stay the exact same way. We can change things a little bit to kind of grow with the times. For those of you that are a little bit younger, just always maintain a little bit of humility, always maintain a little bit of curiosity, and a lot of heart to continue on growing on in this profession. Thank you all for choosing this profession because it's very important and we need people with heart. So, thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached our first break. It'll be about 15 minutes, and then we'll start our next presentation. Thank you very much. As a reminder, to get certified for this lecture, please step to the certification table in the expo hall. There's also refreshments available for you. Thank you very much.